thanks for making the time for this, dude. I really wanted to catch up, man. And like I said, dude, like we barely spent any time chilling in Pamplona with everything that happened. But thanks again, dude.
Oh, thank you. And, I really, really, really appreciate you coming to see me.
Yeah,
right
man.
away. It's all, I mean, there's a real loneliness that comes when you're hurt like that and there's no friendly faces around.
For sure.
And it meant a lot to me to see you come in the room and
dude, no problem at all, man. And I talked to Jack Capra a little bit on like a podcast like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we were talking about his experience. And dude, the first thing that came into my mind was, dude, it's cool when like it's daytime and all your friends and buddies are there, but dude, when you're holed up in some room upstairs at night, that's got to be tough, dude.
Oh yeah, it's horrible. It's they put us together. I'm not sure why. I think they meant to put him with somebody else, another American.
Yeah.
But they put us together, and he came out of surgery and he was out. He was out still, and he woke up throwing up. And
oh my God, man.
He didn't speak any Spanish. He spoke French, and nobody really spoke French. So it was nice. It was nice to be able to be there with him. It was nice that he wasn't alone. And I was able to translate for him and stuff. And
well, dude, I had looked up some article. I think the first time you were in the hospital in 2014, you were there for like 7 nights, right?
I think it was even more than that. I think it was 10. Because Fiesta was over for a while before I got out. I can't really remember. I got to go back and look.
Dude, I will say one thing, Bill, is like, so, we saw each other at least a couple times. I think even after you were released from the hospital, you came by Choco and you came by Windsor a couple times, and we were able to chill for a bit. But dude, like, I did a little research just to like get a good grip on what you had been up to in Chicago even before you discovered Hemingway. Dude, I will say there is so much information out there, dude. It is insane.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm pretty open with the media, which is, it could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. My wife doesn't like it, but it's who I am, and for me, I always, I'll just tell them whatever they want to talk about, we can talk about,
Well, dude, I watched one interview you gave. And I don't know if it was like one of the workshops you did at DuPage, where you talked about David McGrath, but dude, you made a comment. You were like, anybody who called me up on my cell phone when I was in the hospital, I took the call. And there wasn't like any sort of like superiority. It was like anybody who wants to know, can have a story. I'll share it. It was pretty neat to hear that,
Yeah, I mean, for me, like some people, they're real guarded with the media and they want to get their exclusive interview and get their, $5,000 out of their moment of fame, But for me, it wasn't really about that, For me, it was about kind of spreading I looked at the whole thing as an opportunity to sort of spread my joy and love for the run, for the Encierro and the culture and the people. And I figured, there was a lot of negativity out there already about me, coming from like the Huffington Post, and they later edited out a lot of the negativity, but they really were going after me in a lot of the outlets. And I figured, I know I'm a good person, and I know that my heart's in the right place. So I figured the more I talked, the more people will understand that, oh, this guy isn't a jerk, this guy isn't just, some bad guy that we can beat up on. He's actually a decent person with a heart, and he maybe there's something more to this culture. And I think through like just giving every interview that I could, I think I slowly won over the conversation about, the running of the bulls in Pamplona for that summer, at least.
Yeah. No, for sure, dude. And if it's cool with you, dude, I'll just give you a quick intro right now, and like, okay. I'll just kind of kick it off that way. Maybe give a little quick spiel on the wine I'm drinking. I tend to find that's kind of fun.
Yeah,
dude,
nice.
It's, as wine is such a big deal in Spain, and it's catching on here in the US, but dude, in Spain, it's like, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, bro. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, dude, again, so Bill Hillmann on Under the Cork Tree, author of The Old Neighborhood, as well as Mozos, a decade of running with the bulls in Spain. This guy is an author, workshop instructor, speaker, journalist, storyteller, event producer. Dude, the list goes on, man. It's really unreal. From an academic perspective, you got your bachelor's from Elmhurst College, your MFA from Columbia College, and this was interesting. You've run with the bulls in Spain over 200 times. You've been gored on 2 separate occasions, and a lot of your commentary and op-eds have appeared in the Chicago Tribune, the Washington Post, the LA Times. You've been on NBC's Today Show. Dude, it's an honor to have you on here, man, and thanks again.
No, thank you, and it's an honor to be on here. You're a real bright spirit in Fiesta. I'm really grateful you've kind of entered my Fiesta world, and it meant a lot to me when you came to visit me after the Goring. And you're a great guy, and I really appreciate you bringing me on your show.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. Dude, so really quickly, this is kind of fun. So today's wine is it's actually Anciano, and it's a Tempranillo from 2012, and it's just kind of fun to hear about the background of the wine. So this is actually made out of Valdepeñas, which means Valley of Rocks. It's like a region of Spain. It's like 2 hours south of Madrid, and it's on a little bit of altitude, which helps like this grape variety sort of grow. And they have pretty bad winters. It's cold, but also at the same time, they have these really dry and long summers. So it's kind of typical climate for this Tempranillo style grape. It's fantastic. Highly recommended. I usually get these on sale. I'll go to like a New Seasons or like a Whole Foods, and I'll find these bottles from Spain on sale for like $10, which sounds like a lot for a bottle, but for imported wine, it's not bad at all. Anyway. All right.
Sounds good, man. I wish I could drink. I wish I didn't have to give up drinking, man. I would love this glass of wine with you.
So, dude, so about that, one of the first things I had heard about you before I met you was that, so obviously you had been running with the bulls since like 2005, so like 12 years now, and you stopped drinking, yet you still went to Fiesta. You surrounded yourself with people who were constantly drinking 24 hours a day. How did you just not drink? I mean, what kind of happened?
Well, I mean, for me, drinking, I have no problem with people drinking or people drinking around me. Some people, it's just a nice little addition to their lives. It's fun. They have fun with drinking. But for me, drinking brought out a real dark side in me, and it really was destroying my life. It was destroying my marriage. It was destroying my career, my writing. It was destroying everything. It destroyed my boxing career, drugs and alcohol. And, it was just, it was something that I knew if I didn't get it out of my life, I would probably end up dead.
So maybe touching on your earlier life and growing up in Chicago and Edgewater, in the community of Edgewater. Dude, I found your first book, The Old Neighborhood, just fascinating. And the more I heard you talk about it in subsequent interviews and in written pieces in the news, the more I felt like this story was maybe at times fictitious, but of true sort of parallel of what you experienced growing up. So it's really kind of this blending of things that you experienced with things that maybe you saw others experience. How did that experience growing up in Edgewater kind of morph you into who you are?
Well, I mean, I never really thought of it as, when you're growing up, you never really think of your childhood as something that's like unique or something that, that's like important to the world. I mean, I kind of thought of Chicago as the center of the world. We had the tallest building in the world at the time, and, but at the same time, I never really thought of it as something like especially unique. I thought everybody heard gunshots at night. I thought everybody, was in 100 fist fights before they were, 12 years old. I thought everybody, had a brother or relative in prison. That kind of, I thought that's how everybody, because everybody in my neighborhood kind of had that stuff going on. So, I didn't really understand that it was sort of a unique experience until my family, we left for the suburbs, and I started getting older, started going to college and talking to my professors, and they would say things like where'd you grow up? And I would offhandedly just mention things, like, oh yeah, my sister got shot, or something like that. And they'd be like, what? Like, are you writing about this? And they'd be like, are you writing about this? Is this true? you have to write about this. This is compelling. Your story, your life story is super compelling. Like, you need to explore this with your fiction. And and I was like, okay, and I started going, writing it. I started getting good responses from people, and they say you got to write what you know. So I grew up in a typical sort of Chicago tough blue collar neighborhood that had serious gang problems, and people that I knew and loved died, in the streets, just murdered. And and that makes for, a dramatic story. It makes for something that people find interesting, especially being white, because when you're white and you've experienced those things, people are like, that doesn't happen to white people. They sort of think of it as like a black or brown problem, urban problem. And so it's kind of a unique thing in a way. And for me, I didn't never think of it that way. I never thought of it that way because I lived it. And half the gangbangers were white, half the gangbangers were other races. And for me, it was kind of eye opening to see the way the world viewed sort of urban sort of problems. And I think that's kind of what made it an interesting novel.
Well, and it's like you go through this story of Joe Walsh, and you really kind of talk about how he idolizes his older brother, and his brother gets into trouble. He's in the gangland stuff. He's in the drug trade, and despite all these warnings, he still finds himself getting drawn into this I don't know what you'd call it. I don't know, this dark
gang culture, the violence in the neighborhood, the darkness in the neighborhood, I mean, it's something that I wanted to show because, it's so easy to blame a community for its problems. It's very easy to do that, to blame them for their problems, to blame them for not being able to change and stop the violence and stop the drug abuse and stop all those things. It's easy to do that, to sit back far away from it and cast judgment on them. But what you don't realize is that kids are so impressionable. Kids are so sort of vulnerable to all kind of negative, influences. And, if you grow up with someone as a child and you love that person and they're your best friend as a child, and as you grow up, if that person falls into gang life, or maybe he's a relative of yours and he falls into the gangs, he falls into drugs, he falls into the violence, you can't stop loving that person. Mm-hmm. You can't stop loving them, and you can't just stop being around them. So if you're walking down the street with your cousin and he's a gang member, and a car pulls up or guys jump out and try to fight him, you have to fight too. You're sucked into it simply by loving that person.
Just kind of guilty by association, almost, in a way.
Yeah, I think it's even more though. It's more than that when it's someone more than just a friend, or more than a very best friend or a relative. That's where it crosses that line where it's like you really can't escape it. You are with them. If you love them, you're with them, mm-hmm. and that means their enemies are your enemies too. And at that point, if you get sucked in deeper and deeper, and before you know it, you're dodging bullets, and it's...
Well, I mean, a lot of times what I hear is, when you talk to somebody who's in that life, they'll tell you, if you don't band together, if you don't go join a gang or another group, they're going to get you before you get them. So we might as well kind of go on the defensive and be proactive and join a group that can actually protect us and can stand up for us. Is there merit to that, you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, you don't even have to have like a best friend in a gang or a family member. If you just live in one neighborhood, the other gang is going to come over there to your neighborhood, look from their neighborhood, come over to your neighborhood looking for trouble. If they can't find the bad guys, they'll beat you up too. and you could be like a nerdy kid walking home from school with a bunch of books. They're still going to beat you up just because you're from the other neighborhood. They might even shoot you if they can't find the guys they're looking for. And so that's another layer of it too. I mean, you're constantly vulnerable. If you're not in a group, you're constantly vulnerable to the other group.
At least for you specifically, did boxing, and for those listening to the podcast, in 2002, you were actually crowned the Golden Gloves boxing champion from the Windy City Gym. Do you feel like in your life, boxing provided that escape, a way to kind of use that, the aggression and everything that was happening on the street into some sort of positive way?
Yeah, definitely. I grew up, fist fighting and all this, and I was very angry, and I got jumped. I got, bad concussions from kids kicking me in the head, and I was damaged, a damaged person without an outlet to express all that rage and sort of the humiliations and the all that goes along with sort of being involved in gangs. It's hard to express it in a positive way, and it's hard to find some positive way to express it. Some kids can find it in graffiti and art and things like that. When I found boxing, and I learned, started to learn the craft and started to be able to express this rage in a way that people said, "Wow, that was really good job." When I went out and landed some hard punches and expressed myself in a boxing ring, they were like, "Good job, awesome." And then as I started fighting, that, and all of a sudden, hundreds of thousands, sometimes thousands of people are cheering and screaming and roaring applause because I'm expressing this sort of this inner rage that I had. It was a really incredible experience, to turn into something positive. And as I boxed, I also learned, what it was to sort of be an individual, the gang life and being involved in that, it's really a very cowardly sort of group. It's all about fear, it's all about intimidation, it's all about ganging up on people, and when you start to box, you realize it's just you're alone in the ring. You got a coach, you prepare, you got teammates that you prepare with, but when you go in that ring, you're alone. And it kind of taught me how to be a man, how to stand alone, how to be a man, how to take a loss alone with dignity, how to take a win and win with dignity and show respect to my opponent. It taught me a lot about, just life in general and how to live and how to be a decent person. Boxing is a wonderful tool for helping troubled kids.
One interesting thing is, in one of the speeches you gave, you talked about how at DuPage Community College, you had taken some sort of literature class or Hemingway class, and before this, you had never actually read like a full-on novel or book, and you just became mesmerized. I think it was The Old Man and the Sea. Is that right? The first book you had read?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't read it completely, but I was still like holding back, I was like, I had this like, I don't really want to read this whole damn book. I'm not sitting here for 7 hours to read this thing, So I would read little sections, and I liked it. It was cool. But when my professor David McGrath started to sort of explain these sort of metaphors that Hemingway was using in the book, one was this Christ symbol that he had going throughout the book, where the flagpole was shaped like a crucifix, and he sort of uses that metaphor throughout the entire novella, and in the end, I think his name is Santiago. He takes the sail staff and he puts it over his shoulder and he carries it up this hillside. And it's very sort of like a major sort of allusion to Christ. And then he sort of like dug into like what Hemingway was possibly reaching for, sort of this idea that maybe Hemingway suffered through his life and his crucifixion. And in the end, all he had was this sort of fish that was eaten away to nothing by sharks, and he had sort of died in vain. But there was all these other, maybe it was success, maybe it was triumph for there's all these different ideas that were going on, and that blew my mind. That made me like realize like, wait, there's more going on here with this book about this old man trying to catch this fish. There's a he's creating big, really important, Nobel Prize winning art with it, and that really inspired me, because I fish. I was a fisherman, I love fishing, and and there was like a lot of like talk about like stories about bare knuckle fighting in the Old Man of the Sea, and I was like, I fought a lot, I was like, maybe I could make art out of my life, maybe I could make great art out of my life. And that really sparked something for me. And I started writing.
So you started writing, and I think you mentioned this as well, is that you've always had a lot of confidence in yourself, and especially I can't imagine. I mean, being a boxer, I think there has to be some sort of element of you that inspires you and motivates you, that you can be the best, or you are the best. Just to be able to step foot in that ring, like you said, once you're in there, you're a man alone, and getting into writing, at least, in that early going, did that confidence, that self-confidence kind of translate over to the writing, or was it a process to kind of build it up, or how did you get through that?
That's a weird thing about me. Like, I've never really been a confident person. As weird as that might sound, like, I've always been sort of afraid, or like sort of like not unsure. But when something grabbed hold of me, when something like when boxing grabbed hold of me, mm-hmm. and sort of made me sort of become obsessed with it, I would usually become just sort of obsessed and go really hard after it, as hard as I could. And there was never really a sense of confidence. It was more about just, I can't stop doing this because I'm obsessed with it, and that's what writing and literature did to me at that point. It grabbed hold of me. It got my attention so much. I just became obsessed with literature, and I became obsessed with writing, and I couldn't help but write. Like, I couldn't stop. I couldn't, when I started going off on an idea, it just consumed everything. And I just wrote for hours and days and didn't do anything else. And that's kind of a, yeah, I've always been kind of baffled by confidence. Mm-hmm. I've always been sort of baffled by that confidence, because it's so, for me, it's always been such a fake thing to be confident. Like, how could you be confident? That anything can happen. You can lose everything in a minute, in a split second. Anthony Joshua, the greatest, he's fighting in a couple hours, the great heavyweight champion right now. He has an air of confidence, but at the same time, how could he be confident? One punch could end his career, could end his life. I've always felt like confidence was a con. It was a way of conning people to make them think that you're something more than you are. So I never really felt confident in anything I've done. So
in general, maybe it was more of like a persistence, kind of tunnel vision that you kind of had.
Yeah, I just became obsessed with it. And it grabbed hold of me, and it brought me joy, and I struggled. I suffered for it. I went back over, and I just kept working till I built something that people thought was good,
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting is, so I think your first book as an author was The Old Neighborhood, right? But I think around that same time frame, I think you had co-authored, or at least contributed to Xander's book, Fiesta, which was, I think, the survival guide for running of the bulls. I guess when you were involved in that project, specifically the one on Fiesta, was that something that you felt comfortable with? Did you see yourself more as like an individual writer, somebody with, who wanted to share his own story, his own experiences, and kind of go solo, or did you see yourself as like a contributor to other works?
I mean, that I don't really want to talk about that book. I mean, those guys, they're really negative people. We're very, very. I've had a lot of negativity come from them. I don't really talk about them or to them. I'll say this. Yeah. I mean, I authored a guide for the Outside magazine, the biggest adventure magazine in America, a very extremely prestigious outlet. I authored a series of guides for them over a 2-year period, and they're to this day the number one Google search on running of the bulls, how to run with the bulls, and I wanted to do this thing with some people. I came up with the idea. One of them ran with it. I basically just used the guides that I had already written, and they edited it and put it into a book. I mean, that book doesn't exist anymore after I repeatedly asked them to take my work out of it.
Gotcha. Okay.
I don't had time to deal with children. You know, if you're grown, act like a man. You know,
that's fair, man. I can't blame you. That's fair.
You know, that act like children. You know, I just can't. You know, I can't. I'm not their daddy. Well, I can't spank them and tell them to behave.
Well, look, man.
You know, they just gotta go do their own thing.
Honestly, man, from an outsider's perspective, from my perspective, you know, growing up on the north side of Chicago, going through a very rough and violent life, I think, as you had described it, and some of your workshops, being able to turn the corner and, you know, being inspired by Hemingway, The Sun Also Rises, getting that experience of running with the Bulls for the first time in 2005, and again, really turning the page on your life and becoming more of a positive person, whether it was through Buddhism, whether it was through experiencing different cultures unknown to yourself. It would seem odd to me for you to kind of get up, or at least get caught up in those negative influences and people that don't seem to share that same way of life. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I mean, I always just try to. This is my mentality in life is just spend my energies on positive people, give to positive people, be around positive people, and you know, if someone is positive for a while and then they start getting negative, then you know you just gotta leave them in the past.
That takes balls, man. Especially nowadays, dude. Especially if you're somebody like an author, somebody who's frequently in the media, someone who's trying to get good press or trying to get good media coverage and reviews of their books, and their op-eds and things like that. That's tough to do, man. To just say, you know what? If you're a negative influence on me, I'm going to cut you off. If you're positive, it's all game. But that's tough to do nowadays when we're so interconnected through like Facebook and Twitter and everything.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, but at the same time, you know, it's, you know, whether or not somebody can help me or hurt me, you know, I don't really care. You know, my thing is I believe in karma. So if like somebody's bringing me goodness and I give them goodness back, then more good things will happen. And if I'm going and trying to do something with a good heart and somebody's trying to stop that for whatever reason, because they're mad at me or they're angry or whatever it is, they're jealous, whatever it is, that if I ignore that negative energy and those attempts to hurt my career, those attempts to hurt my reputation, you know, the more I ignore those things and keep moving forward with what I do, actually those negative people will actually propel me forward and actually help me through karma, because their negative energy will turn into incredible positive energy for me as long as I just ignore it and keep pushing forward.
Well, one story I thought was just remarkable, dude. So for the record, I think you've been gored on 2 occasions, right? Once this year in 2017 and also in 2014, right? What was fascinating, dude, is you talked a little bit about in 2014, you were gored twice in the thigh. You have surgery at the hospital, and after surgery, you start checking your email accounts and you start to see all the negative publicity and trending. You had just come off of writing that guide of how to survive the running of the Bulls, and everyone's calling you out, all the different media news outlets. You're getting emails from random people saying, I hope you die. And you're in this cooped up hospital room where these negative thoughts are just coming at you. And I guess what I want to ask you is, you mentioned that you come to this moment of I don't know, maybe like an eye opener, and you sort of think to yourself, you know what, I can continue to go back and fight these people over email or over chat. And while my leg is, you know, dealing with this incredible wound and infection, you know, I can continue to do that and make it worse, or I can stop, you know, hang up the emails and the chats and pray for these people. And I just thought, man, that was just incredible. Here's this guy who's in a hospital bed. He was gored twice in his thigh. People are asking or saying that he should die because of, you know, he was stupid enough to run with the Bulls in Spain. And here you are about to pray for these people. And you talk about how you instantly felt these swirls throughout your leg and this healing of the infection that was going on. Dude, I mean, explain that to me, man. What was that process like?
Oh, I mean, you know, I was getting, you know, I was in a dark place. My wife was extremely mad at me. She was talking divorce, and, you know, of course, like I got this, the world media is really lashing out at me, you know, attacking me in personal ways, going after my religion, you know, horrible things going on. And people really, just really sick people writing me horrible things online. And, you know, what I realized was as I fought with them and said horrible things back, I felt my body weakening. I felt and the infection growing, the pain throbbing. I felt my body. I felt like I was dying. I felt like as the anger, as I pushed more and more with this anger, I felt myself dying. And I knew through Buddhism, through this practice, that the only way to defeat that sort of negativity in your life is to actually pray for the people that are bringing that negativity to you, because in reality, those people are suffering as well. They wouldn't bring that negativity to me if they weren't really suffering and really hurt and something deeply wrong with them. And I just said to myself, the only thing I can do, I can either keep fighting them, maybe this infection gets worse, maybe I die, maybe whatever happens, or I can, you know, just hang my Gohanzen. I'm a Buddhist with SGI. You know, it's a talisman, and I can hang that up on my hospital bed, and I can pray for those people. And like you said, you know, as soon as I started praying for them, I started feeling better. I started having these real incredible swirls running through my leg. It's like shivers, like just incredible feeling. And then they were running through my whole body, and I felt incredible. I felt wonderful. I felt like I was going to be fine. And I chanted until I couldn't chant anymore, until I got too tired. And, you know, I laid down, and a few hours later, I checked my email again, and the Washington Post had requested an op-ed. And that op-ed is probably the best essay I've ever written. It went around the globe. And, you know, I'd never really had I never had a print outlet outside of Chicago pick up on something I written. And, you know, it's harder to break in there. And I got lucky with radio and did some national stuff. But this thing that I wanted to become a writer, a journalist with, you know, real credits, you know, it just happened in that moment. This story went around the world, you know, the Daily Mail, Stuff, this big outlet in New Zealand picked it up, the Toronto Star, LA Times. It went, you know, millions, probably printed about 10 million times around the world and read maybe more than that. And, you know, it was, I know it was a direct result of changing my mind about how I was going to deal with all this hatred and this negativity. And I mean, that essay also started to change the way these outlets looked at the situation, you know. And for the most part, stories like these, you know, they take one turn, you know, they spike with a, you know, some kind of a joke like that, like the old, you know, survival guide Arthur Gord, and it's negative, it spikes, and then it dies in about a day or two. Mm-hmm. But that essay came out, and the story started to change, and I kept doing the interviews, and I kept being positive in the interviews after I started chanting, and I could feel the story start to change, and I could feel these reporters coming to me with these questions, and then kind of like going like, oh, like they would say things like that, like as I was talking about it, I'd be like, you know, this is an ancient art. This is a beautiful art. This art transformed my life. You know, these Spanish runners. Mm-hmm. This tradition is incredibly important to them. The Basque runners, you know, they risked their life for this, to create art with bulls because they love bulls. And they were like, oh, they think they're gonna get some. You know, they're getting ready to write some hit piece on me to make fun of me, and my passion and my words and my knowledge and my, you know, love for this culture and the people and the animals, you know, it just won them over. And the pieces started coming out, and they started being positive, and they started being really awesome, like in-depth pieces that weren't jokes, you know, and the story took a major turn, and it started becoming this positive thing. that was really a beautiful thing for the culture. And in my essay, you know, I talked about the runners that I really, really admired, you know, like Juan Pedro Lecona, you know, David Rodriguez, Miguel Angel Perez, and these guys started showing up like, dude,
yeah,
who are you?
And they really embraced you.
Yeah. Like Wampe started coming before the essay, you know, and I was like, oh my God, like Jesus, Wampe came. And then like other guys started coming after the essay, and like it became this thing, was like, you know, what can I do for you? Can I, this is my telephone number. You call me if you need anything. When it's time for you to leave the hospital, I'm going to drive here. I'm going to pick you up and I'm going to take you wherever you have to go.
Wow.
Like Wampe was bringing me presents, and Julian Medina would come in. He came in like 3 times, and like, you know, I kind of knew a little bit, knew Julian, and he was such a, you know, incredible, iconic spirit of the festival and the Encierro, and you know, and he would come in with this smile and just give me this love. And it was really cool with Julian because my Spanish at that point was real bad, and like I'd seen a doc on Julian where when he got gored in 2004 by the Handia, horrible gore, and he survived, came right back the next year, running awesome. But he in that documentary, you know, he talked about his love for the bulls, and he talked about his respect for the doctors in Pamplona, the surgeons and everything, and it was like translated underneath the thing, and like I knew what he was saying, and like it kind of sunk in, like, oh yeah, los mejor hermanos en el mundo, you know, and I'm like, and then he starts talking to me in his room in Spanish, like my wife's not translating, she's just like mad at me or something, and he starts telling me things, and like I understood every word he said for like a 15-minute conversation. It was bizarre. And it was really spiritual and spooky. Like, how do I know what he's saying? He was like, he hypnotized me. Julian is such a special, amazing person. And
dude, he was one of the greatest, man. I mean, and it was always funny watching it on TV. You always saw him out front. As soon as you saw that shiny bald head of his with the earring, you knew that was Julian, dude. You knew it was him.
Yeah, I mean, but it was more than that. I mean, you know, anybody, you know, people can be excellent at this thing. You know, it's just you know, it's a sort of an athletic sort of thing. You know, it's like an adventure sport in a way. You know, and you can be excellent at it and be a bad person. You know, and people not like you, and for good reason, because you're bad. Yeah, you're mean. You're competitive. You're nasty. You know, but for me, you know, in the time that I knew Julian, you know, and he was this fatherly, welcoming, embracing spirit of just goodness. You know, and he cared for people. If he saw you as a runner, you were his brother. You know, and he didn't have this, like, there was no hierarchy of runners. You know, he didn't care if you were, you know, the Michael Jordan of running, or if you were horrible. You know, if you had the spirit in you, he gave you love and respect, and he treated you well. And for me, Julian was one of those magic spirits that I've only come across a handful of people as special and warm as him.
What's cool is, like, even till the end, dude. I mean, when he was still running in Pamplona before his death, you know, even until his last few years there, he would always dress up in the white shirt, white pants. He wouldn't try to stand out. He was very, very traditional in that sense. And he wasn't about, kind of like what you're talking about, he wasn't about that glory. He wasn't about that trying to claim credit and be recognized as the best or even one of the best. And he was just he seemed like a very down-to-earth guy. And unfortunately, I never had the privilege of meeting him, man. But would you say that was kind of a testament to just who he was?
Oh, yeah. You got a good image of him then. Yeah, definitely. That's what he was about. And, you know, I mean, you know, he got hurt in Tudela, and I got there the next day, you know, and I went to see him in the hospital, and it was beautiful, you know, because I was able to, you know, repay that visit that he gave me, or more than one visit. And I was going to go back, but he got transferred out. You know, it was just, you know, it was just bittersweet, sort of beautiful and sad experience going to see him, you know, and and he appreciated it, and it was beautiful, and then I got to see him again. He was at Faustus, and he walked up to me, surprised me. I was eating breakfast, and he snuck up on me. And then I looked up, and there he is at the table with this big smile, And we hugged and took a picture together, and it's just the man was a good man, and for me, I'll always think of him as the father of the Encierro, for at least from my generation,
For sure.
And
no, rest in peace, Hilo Medina, and incredible legend, dude, incredible. And it was really cool this year, man. This past summer when I forget which day it was exactly. I think it was on day 6 when we had the Victoriano del Rio. Everyone tried to wear white. Everyone who really wanted to show respect wore white shirts, white pants to kind of show respect to Hillmann as kind of like a memory, which was kind of cool.
Yeah. No, I mean, they'll be doing things for Julian for years and years, it's not just us, the Americans. I mean, he has a special relationship with the Americans and the foreign runners because, he was just always very embracing of us. But it's not just us. I mean, Juan Pedro Lecuona, him and Julian were close. Juan Pedro isn't really that tuned in with the Americans or the foreigners. I mean, he is a little, but even Juan Pedro, one of the iconic, Navarran Pamplona Basque runner, they put billboards of drawings of him on the side of Corte Inglés that are like 6 stories tall. You know what I mean? Like even him, Julian was his teacher. Julian was his they would talk on the phone and Julian would give him advice and they'd go back and forth and it was when he talks about Julian, I just get shivers. It's amazing. So it wasn't just us. It was a lot of the Spanish runners
made an impression on everyone, really. Yeah, I mean,
giving guy, and when he gave me the interview for the book, I started off as an interview for Outside, he was at like a party or something, and all of a sudden, he's like, no, I'm gonna take the call, I'm gonna do this, and he sat down and gave me this just an incredible story of his going and everything that happened and talking about his passion for the run. And he gave me like an hour interview. He took time away from his family to do this interview, and it was, that's the kind of giving sort of person he was. That's what the Encierro meant a lot to him, man. It meant a lot.
When you first showed up in 2005, did you have any idea this sort of camaraderie existed among the runners? Like what did you know before you ran for the first time? Did you know any of this stuff?
I knew nothing, I knew what I read about him. I knew that people sometimes die. I knew that it was a very daring sort of respected tradition within Pamplona and within the Basque runners. And then I just knew that from what I saw on TV, the craziness of it and the chaos and all the people, I had no idea that there was an art to it at all. I had no idea any of this existed. I had no idea that you could be a good runner. I mean, that whole concept didn't even make any sense to me. Like, most people don't. They don't understand that you can be successful in a run or you can, be unsuccessful in a run. People can't comprehend it, And it took me, luckily my first year, I witnessed, after I ran a couple times, a photojournalist convinced me to watch one. And I luckily got a balcony. I have no idea why this woman let me in there. I think she thought I was waving a $50 bill and I was really waving like a 5. It's like,
I'm from Edgewater, yo.
Yeah, I begged her. I was just begging her. And then she came down and let me in as the police were starting to push me down the street. And it just so happened that morning was the 2005 Handia run. The 2004 run was probably a little worse, but because there was a little Montana, and that's when Julian got gored. But the 2005 one was also very memorable because the bulls crashed. 3 or 4 other bulls crashed into the curve, and then they turned up and went the wrong way up the street and gored some people. And I was right there, like in the first 100 yards of, or first 50 yards of Estafeta on the balcony. And what happened right below me, this bull, I think his name was Vaporoso. He locked onto this guy named Xavier Salias, a kind of a chunky runner, and he locked onto him and gored him and just stayed on him, goring him, and clearly killing him. I mean, gored him in the face and in the torso like twice, in the leg, was tossing him up and slamming him against the wall. And in the midst of all that chaos, like, I'm thinking, like, my God, I'm watching someone die. I need to do something. Mm-hmm. What can I do? Like, I couldn't do anything. I thought maybe I could have ran downstairs and tried to do something, but it would have been no use, you know. And so I'm sitting there just frozen in fear for this guy I don't even know, but who seems like he's probably dying. And suddenly, this runner named Miguel Angel Perez appears, grabs hold of Vaporoso's tail, and Vaporoso instantly stops killing Xavier.
That takes balls, man. To go up there, walk up to the bull and grab him by his tail, that takes balls, man. Whew.
Yeah, it does. But on top of that, like, how does he know that if he grabs the tail, the bull will stop goring him? Like, right. Where is this knowledge coming from? Who is this guy? Is he like Superman or something? And like, Xavier crawls across the street for some reason, trying to get away from the bull, and the bull kind of tries to follow him, and Miguel Angel Perez continues to hold the tail, and the bull can't move forward, but he sort of twists around trying to get Xavier. Xavier kind of gets away through the wall, through a doorway or something, and suddenly Miguel's like, okay, now I'm going to lead this bull up the street. Mm-hmm. He waves he switches to holding the tail with one hand, his left hand. He waves his right hand in the peripheral vision, in the you know, where the vision is of the bull on his side. He waves his hand through that vision. The bull sees it, kind of acknowledges it. He lets go of the tail. The bull starts to twist to come after his hand and after him, and he runs slowly and takes off and leaves this bull 100 yards out of sight.
My God, man.
And I'm like, how did he know how to do that? I'm like, that was not an accident. That didn't just happen by some chaotic turn of events. This guy has incredible skill and understanding of this animal. This guy is like, he's like a bull whisperer.
Well, and look, man, like I think I've talked about this on a couple other podcasts, and maybe you can confirm it, is you have these two very different groups of people who run with the bulls every year. And then you have the bucket list people who just want to, you know, especially from places like the US, maybe Australia, France, who want to go and say they've done it, that they've run in these streets with the bulls. Then you have this very different breed of people who want to go each and every year, not only improve on the craft, but, you know, really kind of, absorb what this tradition is and be a part of the root effort to get these bulls from the corral to the arena. And, do you see it that way? Do you notice that difference in people who run each year?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's the real runners and the runners that are in the way. You know, it's
that's a good way to put it.
You know, and it's difficult. It makes it very difficult, and that's why I stopped running up on Telefonica, because that's where a lot of the people in the way are, and you gotta be a genius runner like Aitor, Wampe, you know, or Pablo Bolo. You know, you got to be a genius, awesome, incredible artist who's willing to die to run and lead these bulls up the street, you know, and you got to be awesome to do it in Telefonica, because there's just people everywhere just standing there. And it's like, you can't, I mean, it's hard, you know, I just can't do it anymore.
Well, and, I will say, dude, and people may not know this, but even if you go back to, and you can correct me, Bill, if I'm wrong, I think it was like July 9th, 2014 when you were gored on Telefonica. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the camera doesn't show a great angle of you being gored. You can't really tell that there's someone else in front of you, pushing you, impeding your ability to move forward. And it's one of the main reasons why you fell to the ground and were gored twice in the thigh. But, there are so many people jam packed in that section of the run. It's no longer about what you can do or what your abilities are, but who's surrounding you and what's sort of impeding your ability to act independently, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, here's the thing. I mean, I'm not in the end, and I never was trying to say this, even though people like interpreted me as trying to say this, I never blamed anybody for getting gored. You know, it just happens. You know, it happens to runners that are 10 times better than I'll ever be. I can never even dream of being. It'll happen to a lot of these great runners that are coming up today eventually. You know, it happened to Wampe, it happened to Julian, guys that are giants, and I'm just a tiny little ant, you know, compared to them. So, I mean, I don't blame anybody for getting gored, but, I mean, I did get pushed, but I've pushed people, you know what I mean? Like, people push each other in the run, you know, it happens. I don't really care, you know, in the end. And actually, I'm grateful for it happening, because it was an incredible life-changing event for me in the end. But, you know, whatever happens, happens, you know. And what happened was there was a suelto. I was leading the bull with the guy I was talking about earlier, Miguel Angel Perez, and David Rodriguez, a guy who I believe is one of the greatest in history. You know, we were leading this bull up the street, and, you know, some guys were kind of bundled up and stuck against the barricades, and I tangled with them, and, you know, and then one guy pushed me. He ran across the street. He tackled another Spanish runner for some reason. But, I mean, it's not his fault. You know what I mean? It wasn't his fault that he pushed me and tackled the runner. He was just dealing with the incredible fear and chaos of the encierro, you know? That's why it's amazing when David Rodriguez leads a suelto up the street. That's why it's amazing, because most people freak out, push, run, dive, smash into somebody and tackle them. That's what most do by instinct. So it's amazing. That's what makes it beautiful and incredible when a great runner does something great, like leading a suelto up the street. But in the end, you know, it happens. You know, it happens, and you know, in the end, I'm grateful for the whole experience. But I don't regret anything.
But the respect you showed for the camaraderie again of the runners of the encierro and what the culture is about. I think in an interview you mentioned while you were in surgery, or it was just after surgery, you knew the name of this guy who had pushed you, yet you didn't blast him out on the media. You didn't say who it was. Is kind of a testament to you know, how you felt about this whole group of runners and what it meant to risk your life each and every morning. You know, whether it was your fault or someone else's fault, you didn't really see it that way. You know, but it definitely sounded like you knew who it was, but you didn't want to put him out on blast. And I think that says a lot about who you are.
Yeah, I mean, some of my friends came over and they're like, I know who pushed you, I know this, I know that, you know, let's tell the media, you know, and I'm like, nah, man, like, no, like, I mean, whatever, like, you know, like, I was glad they were there, so I kind of, like, played along a little, but I was like, I mean, whatever, you know, I fell. I get pushed in the process of farm. Yeah, I got pushed and fell, and what would have happened if I wouldn't have got pushed? I might have still got gored. I might have got gored worse. I might have died. You know, and so it's, you know, in the end, I didn't play into it much, but, you know, there was a lot of negativity thrown my way about the push that was really stupid and misguided, you know, and that's one thing that hurts me when I got runners that I care about who are judging me and, you know, coming after me about, you know, and it's sad. It's sad, but in the end, sometimes you learn who your friends are in those kind of situations, and you learn who are your fake friends or who aren't your friends, you know. But in the end, like, when the next time I saw that guy, and all of them, you know, I tangled with 3 of them, and the one that pushed me, you know, like I said, it was just an instinctive reaction. It wasn't really a push. His arm just flew out because he was freaking out. You know, when I saw those guys again after all was said and done, I shook their hands and I told them thank you, because, you know, whatever happened, it doesn't matter. What matters is that, you know, we were tangled in a moment, and that moment ended up changing my life radically for the positive, you know, and teaching me things about life and about, you know, chance and about, the beauty of the Encierro, and it brought me closer to the Encierro, to the heart of the Encierro, and it showed it. It really revealed the Encierro to me, that whole experience. And so in the end, I had a great deal of gratitude for those guys. And if I see them again, it's always going to be handshakes,
For sure. And what I'm curious about is, after you were gored that summer of 2014, did you know how hard it would be to run the next summer in 2015? Or did you think it'd be like every other summer, you'd just be able to get back in the streets and run? Or was there something that kind of impeded you psychologically almost?
Yes, it was super, super psychologically difficult. I started having nightmares, dreams, voices telling me you're going to die running with the bulls.
Oh my God.
Visions of getting gored. I ran horribly. I was totally broken psychologically on the run. I felt good like going into the run, and I was like, oh, this is not a big deal. I'm fine. And then like as soon as the bulls started getting close, I was like, oh my God, get me the fuck out of here. Like I can't handle this.
Fuck this.
So, exactly. So around, day 7, I think, I gotta look back on the dates. On around the 7th run, I told myself, like, look, you're suffering. This is not fun. You're not helping the run. You're not helping the Encierro at all. You're just out there fucking up and falling, and people are falling over you and stuff. You're not doing any good for the Encierro. You're not helping the run. You're suffering horribly from all of it. Quit. Just quit.
But man, this was what, like your 11th year in 2015? Whew. That's tough to be like, you know what, I've done this for like 10, 11 years. I'm going to quit. But it must have been that bad. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not the kind of person that does things out of pride or out of, like, oh, I'm this and I have to keep doing this. Like, no. If I don't want to do something, I'm not going to do it. And I don't think I want to do this anymore, so I'm going to stop. And so, but I said to myself, like, okay, I quit. But I'm going to run this last run. And that's going to be the last run of my life. Yeah. And I went out there and, I saw my friends and I shook hands with my my foreign runner friends, with my Spanish runner friends, and there was just a lot of gravity, but there was a lot of like gratitude. I was really grateful for all of it, for the experience, for everything it gave me over these years. I was so grateful for the Encierro, and I remember looking up in the sky above there's that narrow channel of blue above the buildings, and seeing these beautiful little black birds sort of cutting across the sky. And I could just feel this feeling of like something telling me like, you're going to run on the horns today.
Damn. That's real talk, dude.
And I was like, okay, I don't even care. I just want to be out here one last time. And the bulls came and I just held the center of the street, and it was easy. And the people weren't really around me, and I could just hold the center, and I held the center of the street, and the bulls, and I felt the bull come up behind me, and I led him, for 10 or 15 yards, and he sort of swung wide at the final turn into the arena, and he sort of went beside me, and I kind of just watched him beside me, and he just kind of galloped on, and I just let him go.
My God, man.
I just felt wonderful. I felt grateful. I felt incredible gratitude. I was just, I was in love with the Encierro again. All the fear was gone. All of it was just kind of gone,
What's amazing though, man, is like that happened on like what, day 6 or 7? It was definitely towards the end of Fiesta, right? And
it was the 7th. I remember now, actually. It was 7th.
I mean, what's amazing, dude, is in one of your workshops, again, I don't know if I think it might actually been in like an interview in the Chicago Tribune. You talked about what kind of advice you would give a Bill Hillmann at the age of 14. I think at this time you were like 30, but someone had asked you at the Chicago Tribune, what advice would you give to yourself if you could go back to when you were 14? and you said a couple things that kind of stood out, at least in my mind. First thing you said is, don't be afraid if your dreams change. And the second thing you said is, you can lose the first 14 rounds of a fight, but you can win if you knock out your opponent in the 15th. And it's just the symbolism there between having a rough first 6 days in the encierro, right? There are 8 total. And then waking up on the 7th and having that burden off your shoulders, that pressure off your shoulders, and just killing it with that majestic run on the 7th day. Man, special. Very special.
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I forgot about that 15th round line, and it's so true. It's so very true. And there can be that final sort of redemption at the end. And it can be really even more powerful than maybe when I'm having a fiesta that's like, oh, it's all coming to me easy. And I'm having great runs every day or whatever. When you have to suffer for something, sometimes it makes it so much more sweeter. But something happened on that last day. This is something I want to talk about. Is the most beautiful experience I had this year. That really speaks about it, all of it. The next morning was the Mura, and the Mura broke the speed record that day. They were huge, incredibly fast, and everybody got hurt. Everybody. And I don't mean everybody, I mean even Aitor Artestraga got hurt.
Oh, man.
The great young runner of Spain. The great
Dude,
young runner
isn't
of
he
Spain.
the guy? So on your cover of Mozos, isn't he at the bottom? That's him, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was his first. That's another thing that's beautiful, too. That was his first great run. That day he had actually hurdled the person who was standing up straight, running. Hurdled over them.
Oh my
God. His crotch hit the person's shoulder, and his legs swung over his shoulder and landed on the ground, and he continued to run on the horns of a bull. That same bull that I ended up running on the horns of.
That same day.
In the end, as me and him are running into the arena, our newspapers cross with about 2 or 3 inches in front of the bull's snout, and we enter the arena with our newspapers crossed. And he runs straight out into the ring. I kind of fall to the side. And when he ran out into the center of the ring in front of that bull, the crowd just erupted. It was the first bull that entered the arena that day. Oh. And it was like his coming out moment as I am going to be a great, great runner. And he was just saying it to the whole world in that moment. And I mean, it was beautiful for me. And he's gone on to become... He's well on his way to becoming one of the greatest runners ever.
He's special, man.
He's still young.
Yeah.
He's still young, and he's got a lot of work to do. But he's on that path for sure. But so Aitor gets hurt that day, and I fall too. I got smashed too, and I fell about 10 feet away from Aitor, and Aitor, I just hear Aitor's voice screaming, and it sounds like a child screaming, And I rush over him, and me and like 3 or 4 guys pick him up and hand him through the barricades to the medics. And it ended up his back was broken. He had fractured a vertebrae in his back, and he had hurt his shoulder really bad too. And he was in bed rest for, he was on bed rest for 6 months, some crazy thing. And he was able to come back the next year in the first morning, and his grandfather had died also that year, and he was wearing this memorial shirt for his grandfather, and he led the first bull to the arena, man, and it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. But my friendship with Aitor has been unique and really special to me, and I've become friends with his friends. His friend Javi Mentegui, he's become close with him as well, and David Lerga, and all these guys. They're really, really great bunch of guys. And what happened was when my book came out in 2015, Aitor was working somewhere. He's a painter with his family's company, and he was out painting somewhere, and he couldn't come to the event. And Wampe had helped set up the event, and Wampe felt like when Aitor didn't show up, that it was very disgraceful, and they were also friends. Aitor and Wampe were the 2 leading runners in Telefonica, and Wampe was kind of showing Aitor the way. And they were having these incredible runs where they would run and they would mirror each other in front of these bulls for like hundreds of yards and just be running incredibly, like as if they were one person and there was a mirror like reflecting them. And it was amazing to see. It was so awesome, and it was one of the main things that was so beautiful, because it was this mid-40s guy who had been great for 25 years showing this guy who was 25 trying to become a runner, and you could see these two Basque runners sort of this passing of the torch happening. And they were friendly with each other. They loved each other. And when my book came out, Aitor didn't come to the event, and they didn't really communicate why, because Aitor was out of town and had to work, and that friendship broke. And in 2016, they were like not running together anymore, and they actually were bumping in and falling in over each other, and it was totally disjointed, and they were fighting with each other and yelling at each other, and it was like this beautiful sort of thing that I was so amazed by, like, was broken in 2016.
Seems like you were almost kind of caught in the middle too.
Yeah, and I didn't know it really. I didn't really put it together because I was so sort of depressed that year and screwed up, and I was like not really tuned in. And so what happened was I got kind of a grip on what had happened by 2017, by this year, and I was spending a lot of time with both of them, and I was trying to find a way to bring it up and to mend it. I wanted to mend this thing because it was over me. And Wampe didn't know that Aitor explained that he was working, and Aitor was sad that he couldn't go, and Aitor took me all over Spain that summer because Wampe couldn't. Wampe had a new job. He was working a lot of hours. He couldn't go run the smaller runs. So I was out running with Aitor all summer in 2016. And we were like, loved each other, man. We ran on the horns together in Tudela and Falses, and we fucking were having a blast. The relationship was great, and I bonded with all of Aitor's friends. They treated me like a brother, they treated me wonderful. But Wampe didn't know this. So in this year, I came in with the mentality like, I gotta help mend these guys' friendships. These two iconic Basque runners, they can't be fighting over me. It's silly. They're not fighting over me or fighting over some little offensive thing that someone thought was an offense and the other didn't.
Right.
So,
right.
I came in the festa wanting to do that, and I was really lucky that I didn't have to do anything, because when I got gored, all Aitor's friends helped me. Javi was holding my hand while the medics were investigating my wound, and there's one guy, I can't remember his name. I feel like such a jerk. He's a gigante. He's really big. I forget his name. I can't remember his name. His name's like either Daniel or Christian. His name is Christian. Christian.
Oh, that is
who
too
I
much,
love,
dude. Oh.
And I owe Christian so much because Christian, the gigante, really friendly, huge guy. And he wears the costume and dances as a gigante in all these festivals. Christian comes up to me first, and I'm like, Christian, like, man, please help me. I need to get my phone out of the bookshop because I have to call my wife so she doesn't hear about this before I tell her, because she's gonna freak out and think I'm dying or something. And Christian's like, I'm in Spanish, I'm upset. So I'm like, el bolsa rojo en el tienda de libros, por favor, amigo, por favor. And he runs away, and then Javi comes up and starts holding my hand, and I'm telling him like, I'm fine, I'm gonna run tomorrow, And I'm like, and then like Javi's laughing and like trying to like be there for me. And all of a sudden, like I'm getting in the ambulance, and suddenly Christian appears with the bag, gives me the bag before I go to the hospital. So Christian he's way up on my list of people I need to find a way to pay back in some way. I'm gonna give him something, do something for that man. He's a great person, wonderful friend. He's un amigo gigante.
Yeah, he's a gigante, dude. Oh, that is epic, dude.
So now all the guys, all Aitor's guys, they all know I'm gored, so they go get Aitor, tell him what happened. I'm going through surgery and stuff. I go to the emergency room right after. Actually, you were there when this happened. So Wampe heard about it, and Wampe, of course, came to the hospital immediately, and so I get there, and Wampe's there, and Wampe's, you're there. I think you were still there, or you left already. I think you guys were there.
Me, Dennis, and Aaron. Yeah, you're right.
And so Wampe's out there, he's checking on me, making sure I'm okay, taking care of me. And all of a sudden, Aitor and his guys show up, and I'm thinking like, Hobbies comes over, and I'm bullshitting with Hobby and acting goofy, and I'm not even thinking about it at the moment, but I'm like, wait, Aitor's here, and Wampe's here, and I'm like, man, how can I get them together? And I start to think like, what can I do? And I'm about to ask Javi, like, how can we make these guys make up? And I look over, and Aitor and Wampe are smiling, and talking shit. And at the foot of my bed, I'm watching them laughing, and they hug, and they're embracing each other as brothers again, as what they were before this stupid thing happened. And me and Javi are looking at each other and looking at him, and then we're just laughing. I can't fucking believe that this crazy fucking Goring and all my crazy antics had somehow or another led these two to come to an understanding that, yeah, of course Aitor is there in the hospital. He fucking loves me. He's my brother. Like Wampe, he didn't disrespect me when he didn't show up to the stupid event. Like, come on. Like, you guys, this is, like, come on. You guys are fucking... These are great runners. You guys are brothers. Come on.
But it's amazing. It's amazing how tragedy brings people together, man. And although you survived and everything, but it's amazing how like a near-death experience would just break down all the bullshit and fucking bring people together, man. Yes. Right?
Exactly. I didn't have to say a word, man. I just had to get gored, and so they could know that they both, of course, they both love me, and they're my brothers, and everything's cool, And so that happens, right? Yeah. And I go through my chaotic fiesta, whatever. It was fun. It was silly. And on the last day, again, the mural. And Aitor's leading the mural into the ring, into the tunnel. And Wampe's there, and he's leading too. And suddenly, there's a little pile up. A bunch of people fall right in front of the bulls, and both, and Aitor kind of somehow slides in front of Wampe, and the bulls are kind of all like crowded up, like kind of like crushing them against the wall. And Wampe, who's done this before, this isn't the first time he's done something like this. The horn of the first or second bull is about to hit Aitor directly in his spine, and he can't get away. He's in the midst of falling, and it's about to hit him in the spine, and Wampe grabs the tip of the horn, and the horn smashes into Aitor's back with Wampe holding the tip, and it kind of slides up along his spine, up by his head. And because what's happening is in that split second, Wampe is pulling the horn up. And for some reason, when you pull the horns of a bull upward, they can't really resist it for some reason. And it's something that, Wampe grew up on ranches. He knows all the animals very well. So he knew if he yanked that horn up, he could actually pull the horn out of Aitor's back and keep it from goring him. And I mean, I don't believe, I'm spooky, I believe that things happen for a reason. I believe that miracles happen. I believe that, incredible things happen. And for me, there's no doubt in my mind that Wampe saved Aitor's life in that split second.
Wow.
And there's photos of this all over.
This is in Callejon, right?
Yeah. And there's no doubt that he did save Aitor from traumatic injury. But I believe that he saved Aitor's life in that moment. And I don't know, why or what it means. Or I don't know. Yeah. But I just know.
There's some sort of reason behind that. There's some sort of, yeah.
I know, I believe in the Encierro. And I believe in Juan Pedro Lecona. And I believe in Aitor Aristregui. And I believe in destiny. And I believe that moment was destined to happen. And I don't know what it all means. I don't know what my place in it is, other than maybe just being the one person who can see it and who can try to tell it to the world. But that's what I'm going to do. Is I'm writing a book about it, and I believe that was one of the great moments in the entire history of the NCAA.
I remember Larry talking about one time, and you know Larry, old time runner. I think now he's not running anymore. He contributes to like, Televisión Española and other outlets like that. But I remember him talking about San Fermin, right? Saint Fermin, and what it meant to be a part of the encierro. And he had mentioned, I think after, back in 2009, I think when someone had died, he mentioned, look, when you have so many people, I mean, we're talking about a few thousand people every morning jam-packed in these barricaded streets, these enclosed streets, how easy it could be for people to die, yet so few people actually do, right? I think mortalities over the past 80, 90 years have been like about 15 people, several gorings, but, relatively few deaths. And he mentioned something like, look, it makes you, start to contemplate, what, maybe there is a San Fermin. Maybe I should believe in San Fermin when so few people die from this very dangerous, very risky event. And it really hit home. It makes you think about, every morning when they do the bendición, down there on Santo Domingo, how meaningful that is. And it touches your heart, man. It's incredible.
Oh man, thank you for saying that. That really touched me and made me think. And it's true. I believe. When I say I believe in this year, I believe in San Fermin. Mm-hmm. I believe in the magic of this festival. I believe in the beauty and in the majesty of it, and I believe that San Fermin protects us. And I think San Fermin was inside of Juanpe's hand that morning when he grabbed the horn of that bull to save Aitor. And
man, I mean, you're talking about Aitor, a kid in his 20s still, right? Who has his life ahead of him. Could have all been over in that moment.
Yeah, and I've been around for some of the miracles, and when John Geronimo Mendoza was crushed in 2013, I was there, I tried to help save that kid,
Dude, you fucking pulled him out of the whole pileup.
Well, yeah, I mean, after the pile cleared, he was one of the ones left at the bottom that was crushed really bad. And, there was, I think I would say there was 5 guys, but I think 3 were really bad. 3 weren't breathing. And he was the one that looked the worst. And the Bulls were still in the ring, so I figured the Bulls might come our way. They were still kind of running around circles and agitated. And so I grabbed him. Me and another guy grabbed him by his arms and drug him away to the fencing. And we tried to pick him up and hand him over to the police, and they wouldn't take him. And when we looked back up, the Bulls had entered the corrals. And so then we took him and we carried him. And we carried him across the ring. I was thinking we would take him to the medics and go to the hospital, but luckily a medic came and directed us to the horse patio, to the surgery room. And
at that point, was he unconscious?
Oh, he was dead.
Fuck.
He was, for all intents and purposes, he was dead. He was not breathing. He had no pulse. He was making no noises. He was dead in our hands. But there was this pulsing energy kept sort of like surging up into his arm, where I was holding him up by his arm and his shoulder. And this energy would kind of like, there would be nothing in my hands, right? Like just this weird popping sensation was like kind of popping off of him. Like it was like, it felt like sparks were just hitting my arms and my hands. And it was like this energy that was just like sucking all the energy out of me. I don't know how to describe it. It was like, I don't know. I've described this to medics, and they've said they felt it before around dying people and dead people, like newly dead people. It's this weird sort of negativity that just like sucks everything, all the energy out of the room. And I felt that, and then suddenly it would change, and like there would be this like crazy, like, it felt like something was crawling inside of his body, like this like an electric pulse was just like crawling inside of his body, just crawl up into his arm, all the way to his hand, then it would die again, and it would go away. And that just kept happening over and over as we were carrying him. And it was just incredibly, I remember feeling like this exhaustion. Like I almost felt like all my energy was just flowing into his body. And we were just hoping, this hope that we could save him, that somebody would be able to save him if we got him there in time. And he was purple, his face was just purple and his mouth was open. His eyes were rolled up in his head. He was gone. He was just gone. And we carried him. There was another guy that was on TV. He was Australian, and one police officer carried him by himself. And that guy, the camera followed him. It didn't follow us. And we luckily beat him to the horse patio because John Geronimo Mendoza was in worse shape, and he needed more emergency care. He was dying. The doctors, we got him in there. And the doctor said that there was like 5-second window that they could save him. And we luckily lifted him right onto the stretcher, right into the surgery room. He went. It was like a machine. We got him in there. The medics were ready, man. They were ready for him. And then the Australian kid came in, and then another guy that got gored came in. And they tried to push the kid that was gored out. They pushed us all out because there was too many of us. And they tried to push the kid that was gored out, and I screamed like, "He's gored, Cornala!" Screaming.
You're like trying to tell these people what happened.
Yeah, and the police grabbed him in, and they pushed us out. And I was sure he would die. I was sure that all three would die. Really, I couldn't imagine them bringing them back. Really, they were just dead. I mean, I've seen dying people, and that's what they look like. Except they weren't even breathing at all. And I was just in shock, and luckily, found my wife right away, and it was horrible, man. And then I just had like some nasty people like trying to say that I was lying.
That's fucked up, man.
It was just horrible. It was horrible, Luckily, pictures came out the next day that proved what happened, But it was just like, that's the one thing too, about it all is like the negative people. I just ignore them, I believe in myself enough to know that, like, to know what happened and know who I am and what I've been through, and I don't need people to acknowledge that, And if they want to say like you're a liar, I don't care. I don't let it affect me, I don't let it get to me. And it's,
but what's so tough, Bill, is like when you're in a position like yourself who, relies on, public perception, and we talk about the books and we talk about the interviews and the op-eds, you're a very public person when it comes to that. And you're very susceptible to negative or positive, reviews and things like that. Dude, it's gotta be tough to kind of compartmentalize all the negative shit that comes your way. And not let that distract you from all the positive shit you do in your life. That's fucking tough, man.
It's hard, but in the end, you just gotta like, just focus on what's important. I mean, in reality, like, it hurt that people that I knew that I thought were my friends were saying I was lying, but what really mattered, and the only really fucking thing that mattered at all, is that this poor kid lived.
Dude, he fucking lived. That's what's most incredible.
That's all that mattered, is that the kid would survive. And I spent like the next day and a half praying for this kid constantly and thinking about him and begging him to wake up, because he was in a coma. And I just spent that time like, just please wake up, please, you gotta live, you're just a 19-year-old kid, you gotta live. And they were considering pulling the plug and all this, and it was a hard day and a half, man. And then when I got the news that he would live, man, I just like cried from joy.
Let me ask you, dude, what would have gone through your mind if you had not run that day? And the next day, you found out everything that happened, and let's say this guy did die. Let's say nobody pulled him out under the pile. He died there in the Callejon. What would have gone through your mind knowing that you didn't run that day?
That was another thing that solidified all that for me, that I have to run. I have to be there and try. I don't necessarily have to. I'm not necessarily going to help people every day or doing something great every day, but I had to try because, yeah, I don't think I would have been able to deal with that if I didn't run. That wouldn't have dealt with that well. If a kid had
You see, I
died.
mean, like that to me separates those two groups of like the bucket list and then those who actually go to be a part of the culture and a part of the tradition and be a part of that run, that majestic culture that is, whether it's in Pamplona or Sanse or Cuellar or whatever. It's, that's special, man. And, you know, it's incredible. I think the way you talk about it, I can't imagine someone going to the Running of the Bulls for the first time ever after reading Hemingway and just wanting to be exposed to what Hemingway sort of, you know, experienced back in the 1920s. You know, I can't imagine going through that in '05 and it just transforming your life for the better. Can't imagine it, man. Incredible.
Oh yeah, I know. It's hard. It's hard to even fathom it. But it's one of those great testaments to like following your heart and following what you're passionate about to the extreme. You will always be repaid, and in fact, you will be repaid 1,000,000-fold than you could ever have imagined. The possibility of what you could have been repaid. I mean, I have people in my life that I love so much, you know, that I care for so much that I never would have met in 1,000,000 years. I never would have met Juan Pedro Legon. I never would have met Aitor. I never would have met Javi. I never would have met Christian. I never would have met David Lerga. You know, I never would have met them in 1,000,000 years if I hadn't followed my passion.
Fuck, man.
And you know, that's one message I have that, you know, to everyone in the world is stop putting it off. If you're interested or passionate about something, make it a priority and go after it, you know, because you only live once and you have no idea the reward you'll get for for seeking out and striving to know more and discover more about your passions.
Well, look, man, I know you're a super busy guy. Hopefully if you, I know we're approaching like an hour and a half in this thing, but, if you want to spend like the last couple minutes or last 5 minutes, I'd love to hear about some of the projects you're working on, whether it be books, Windy City, I think the Story Slam, the event that you usually produce. What do you got going on in your life, man? And what kind of projects do you have that you're focusing on?
Well, right now I'm turning the old neighborhood into a trilogy, so I'm working on my second draft of the sequel, and it's going real good. I'm real excited about it. The other thing I'm working on now, I had a book set that was going to be just about my summer when I ran the 200 runs in throughout Spain last summer. It was going to be called The Pueblos. But what I figured out now, since the goring and all the chaos and everything, and Wampe and Aitor and all the things that happened, is what I'm going to do is turn it into just kind of like a full memoir that's going to explore sort of my return to the run after the first goring. And it's going to end sort of with me going through this crazy recovery that I just went through, where I was dealing with this mysterious pain and infection, and that had me in hospitals in 3 different countries. And so that's going to be the next Bull book. It's still probably going to be called The Pueblos, and the core of it's going to be this summer running all those runs. But I'm going to sort of have it start and end outside of that summer.
And as far as the Windy City Story Slam, are you going to continue to do that, or is that something you're putting on pause while you kind of continue the literary side of your career, or what do you think?
Yeah, the Windy City Story Slam has been on pause for a while. You know, I came to the point where I realized like I couldn't really give proper time to my writing if I was up an event producer and producing these events constantly. So I put it on pause. I mean, it could come back any moment. But for right now, I mean, I'm so overloaded with writing that that's all I really want to do. and so I'm sure it'll be on pause for a few more years, but it can come back any moment.
Dude, I would encourage anyone listening to the podcast is go on to billhillman.org, check out a few of the clips that he has on there. If you want to, look at boxing videotapes, if you want to look at some of the speeches he's given, workshops at DuPage, interviews with, WGN or NBC Today, you can check him out on YouTube. Dude, I was just mesmerized, dude, by how your first experience in '05 transformed you as a person, and just springboarded you into this career of literature, public speaking, workshops, storytelling. It's just amazing the influence, that Spain, the Basque countries had on you, man. And I just want to say thank you so much, man. It sucks that we didn't have a whole lot of time to connect this past summer, but I know for sure, I don't even have to ask you. I know for sure you're going back, in the summer of 2018 to Pamplona. And dude, let's live it up. I'll buy you a Coke. And, what do you think, man?
Oh yeah, let's do it, man. You're way up on my list of people to hang out with, man. I really appreciate you all the support you gave me this fiesta. It meant a lot to me, and being there in the hospital with Dennis, all of that, man, that I'll never forget it. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, man. Anytime, man. And you know what? The funny thing is, man, is I know that if that same thing were to happen to me, to Dennis, to Aaron, to anybody, you'd be there. I know that. And that's the camaraderie, and that's what's special about Fiesta. And thank you, man, for continuing to kind of push this tradition and spread the word about it, just as Hemingway did some, 80, 90 years ago, dude. So,
Oh, thank you, man. Thanks so much. Yeah, it's something. I mean, it's something that I can't really help it. It's got a hold of me, and I don't know if it's ever gonna let go. This culture and this festival, and I'm in love with it.
Dude, thank you, Bill.